Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. One person in St. Lucia does not think bringing back retired top cop Pelios will make a difference. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Friday, 8th September 2023, brought to you in association with our friends at Antillean Group. Details after this important message.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all, perils big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Welcome back. A former Minister of National Security in St. Lucia, Hermingill Francis, does not agree with the Prime Minister's decision to recall Cressida Descartes-Pelios as Commissioner of Police. Francis said that he believes she lacks the acumen to lead the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Stanley Lucian of HTS News Force has more.
The former Home Affairs and National Security Minister Hermingill Francis has placed a damper on the recall of Mrs. Descartes-Pelios to head the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Francis, himself a former Deputy Commissioner of Police, was blunt in his assessment of the capabilities of the Commissioner to lead the force. The former National Security Minister compared the Commissioner, Descartes-Pelios, unfavorably to her predecessors, claiming she does not have the training and experience to serve as head of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force.
But with Miss Pelios, and I must tell you that Miss Pelios is a friend of mine. I respect her, I admire her, but Mrs. Pelios does not have the acumen of being a Commissioner of Police.
Francis painted a picture of neglect of the human resource development of the members of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. He says the imposition of the Leahy Law had far-reaching implications for the organization. He noted the highly regarded FBI training for leading members of the force has not been attended by a St. Lucian in a quarter of a century.
The last set of police officers who have gone to the FBI was Albert Regis and Hermingill Francis. That's 1998. Him. Other countries to become Commissioner of Police, or in fact the Assistant Commissioner of Police, it is a requisite requirement for you to do the FBI course. If you don't do the FBI course, you will not be promoted to Assistant Commissioner.
For 5 years, from 2016 to 2021, Hermingill Francis served as both Home Affairs and National Security Minister, an opportunity to introduce reform, secure support, and provide badly needed training for the men and women in uniform. But the then Minister Francis was widely criticized for being ineffective and roundly condemned for his manipulation of the leadership of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force and its impact on police morale and unity. He said he had plans for the reform of the police force, but provided no reason why those plans were not carried out.
In the succession plan for the police force, that's one of the things I wanted to do. I also wanted Mr. Mosheri to look at the manpower analysis for me.
In announcing the appointment of Mrs. Cressida Descartes-Pelios to the post of Commissioner of Police, Prime Minister and Minister for National Security Philip J. Pierre says her one-year term will be used to groom a cadre of promising police officers to take over the mantle of leadership of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Following endorsements from members of the force and a vote of confidence from the Prime Minister and presumably the Cabinet of Ministers, the stinging assessment of the former National Security Minister is a sharp reminder, if one were needed, for Mrs. Descartes-Pelios of the challenge that lies ahead. Stanley Lucien for the HTS News Force.
Inflation in the Bahamas expected to drop. More in this ZNS news item.
Recovery from the protracted COVID-19 pandemic nears completion as reflected in the central bank's latest monthly economic report. That report pointing to the domestic economy's growth trajectory continuing, nonetheless, moderately. But there is a worrying recurring theme.
Been too high for too long. But the global inflation crisis has made things even worse.
No truer words if you were to consider the contents of the central bank's July report. That report projects inflation remaining high in the near term. On the upside, it's expected to decrease over the medium to long term with a lag to moderating price trends and delayed fuel cost. There is the prevailing reality, though, that uncertainty in international oil prices coupled with supply chain shortages related to geopolitical tensions in Eastern Europe are upside risk to inflation. Local prices at the pumps recently soared to its highest level in nearly a year at an average of $6 per gallon. Yet another financial burden Bahamians struggle to shoulder atop escalating grocery prices and soaring power bills. Add to this the central bank's July prediction that counter-inflation policies could weaken the travel spending of key source market consumers. Comfort comes in the country's new and ongoing foreign investment-led projects that are expected to provide support to the construction sector and, by extension, economic growth. And that brings us to how things look on the fiscal front. The central bank has determined that as conditions become more favorable for more consolidation, the government's net financial gap should continue heading downward. As expected, though, that recovery is significantly connected to what's called tourism-led improvements in taxable economic activities.
Trinidad and Tobago's annual gross domestic product improved in 2022. But there was a drop-off in the GDP performance for the first quarter of 2023 when compared with the last quarter of 2022. In the meantime, the Couva Tabakit Talparo Regional Corporation believes the Ishan Ali Promenade can become a new hub for businesses in the area. CNC3's Peter Christopher tells us more in this edition of Business Watch.
In a release on Sunday, the Central Statistical Office confirmed the Trinidad and Tobago economy grew by 1.5% in 2022 when compared with 2021. This, the CSO says, was due to a 5.8% expansion in the non-energy sector, despite negligible growth being recorded in the energy sector. The CSO says the non-energy sector activities such as professional, scientific and technical services, transport and storage, accommodation and food services, trade and repairs, manufacturing and construction helped this push. However, the release explains these increases were offset by a slowdown in economic activity in agriculture, financial and insurance activities, and other service activities. The CSO, however, notes that the Trinidad and Tobago economy grew by 3.0% in the first quarter of 2023 when compared with the first quarter of 2022. However, the release notes this is compared with a 4% decline recorded in the first quarter 2023 over the fourth quarter 2022. The Couva Point Research Chamber of Commerce and the Couva Tabakit Talparo Regional Corporation have discussed plans to turn the Inchan Alley Promenade into a youth entrepreneurship hub. New chairman of the Couva Tabakit Talparo Regional Corporation, Ryan Rampasad, says the plan could bring much-needed job creation to the community.
Our council members are very much interested in developing the Inchan Alley Promenade into a youth economic entrepreneurship incubator. What does that mean? We could easily construct 20 huts where we could have young entrepreneurs come in, set up businesses, and each employ 5 people. That would be 100 new persons employed in the area of Couva and environs.
President of the Chamber, Mukesh Ramsingh, says the Chamber is in favor of the decision as he believes it can bring new business to Couva and environs.
I think that is a nice idea, and the business community would be backing it. Based on my experience of traveling, especially the country of China, night markets and markets of those types are very, very huge, especially in smaller towns. It creates a lot of economic activity.
Ramsingh says, however, such a venture would need the backing of the protective services given the current crime situation.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick, in association with our friends at
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
fellow artists, friends and fans paid tribute to pioneer and national icon Denise Plummer Boocock at a service of thanksgiving and praise in celebration of her life on Wednesday last. Ayana Carter of TTT News has more.
Powerful, resilient, and inspirational were just some of the adjectives used to describe icon Denise Plummer, a woman who was a trailblazer in the local music industry.
But I would describe Denise, since I've known her so well, as one of the most kind-hearted persons that I've ever met. She was quite apart from her performances and what we know her to be as one of the greatest entertainers that we have in Trinidad, most versatile. Denise has one of the warmest hearts that I ever know towards humanity.
As an icon, I really do remember what a lot of people remember, her rising from the ashes when she was in San Fernando participating in the Calypso Monarch, and they had toilet paper and come back the next year and give them hell. So she's iconic, she's legendary. Woman is Boss, Now Leaving, so many other songs. She'll always be cherished and remembered, and she's a trailblazer.
Some persons recall their favorite memories and songs.
She's such a conqueror. She knows she never lets anything keep her down. She's such an inspiration to myself, and it's going to be sad that this nation, young people, are not going to know her.
Oh gosh, well, I used to sing Now Leaving with Image and Company, so that was always one of my favorites because, oh gosh, learning it was so much fun, and then every time I got to perform it was so loved, so I just loved Now Leaving. That was one of my favorites.
And in true extempo fashion, Philip Murray, Sobriquet Black Sage, sang a special verse in her honor.
Trinbago, I am very pleased. I am here to pay full respect to Denise. Denise Plummer, may I be so bold. One of the greatest calypsonians here in the world. But Denise, my darling, please tell me this. Tell me why you break your promise. You have all of us here in Queen's Hall grieving. Remember your promise. You're not leaving.
69-year-old Denise Plummer lost her battle with cancer on August 27th. Ayana Carter, TTT News.
She continued to rest in power.
Several regional agencies have signed a letter of intent which aims to enhance regional integration of the security and public health responses to firearms trafficking and violence. Details in this TTT News item.
Several regional agencies have signed a letter of intent which aims to enhance regional integration of the security and public health responses to firearms trafficking and violence. The CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security, the Caribbean Public Health Agency, the University of the West Indies, and the Small Arms Survey signed the letter to agree on the joint project. The signing ceremony was conducted on Tuesday evening at the Hyatt Regency, and CARICOM Impacts said the project builds on the findings and recommendations of the Caribbean Firearms Study, published in 2023. Researcher at the Small Arms Survey, Anne Severy, said the agreement is timely given CARICOM's recent view to treat crime and gun violence as a public health issue.
Findings from the Caribbean Firearms Study indicated that law enforcement and forensic units that collect and process evidence at crime scenes often offer unique opportunities to monitor illicit ammunition and firearms and their possible origin. But this also requires these units to collect and share data with other countries in the region more routinely.
And Executive Director of CARICOM Impacts, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Jones, said he believes the integration between all agencies will benefit the region significantly.
Growing research proves that the most effective way to tackle gun violence is to stop thinking of gun control as only a law enforcement issue, and I'm sure the Commission will be glad to hear that. But let us see gun violence as a public health issue as well. In its basic form, the public health model says that you intervene in as many places as possible. That is, that there's no magic solution. There are several solutions and many areas of intervention, and this requires a multi-sectoral approach.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily regional news and more, in association with our friends at Antillian Group.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.